6 o'clock. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and have Chief lead us in, have Brett lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance and have Chief say a prayer for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Father God, we thank you for your mercy and your grace. We thank you for bringing us all safely through this storm. We ask that you would be with us and that you would help us to rebuild our wonderful city. We ask that you would be with everyone here tonight, that you would be with these elected officials that are going to make decisions. Help them, Lord, to make wise decisions and the right decisions and putting this city back together. All this we ask for in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen.
All right, and I'll call this regular public meeting of the City Commission to order. First thing on the agenda is the consent agenda, the minutes from our regular meeting on 10/2 and all emergency meetings from 10/8 through 10/24. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yep, so moved.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Lowry. Do I have a second? Second. Any opposition? Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to the next item. Jim, did you want to handle the building department update?
Yes, sir. We actually have a representative here from the building department to ask any questions we may have tonight. I thought it'd probably be a good idea to get us an update on our regular meeting. I think Mr. Willie Payne's here. If he wants to
Actually, no, Mr. John, senior high school.
Come on up. Make sure you state your name for the record and sign in.
I'm Scooter Hodges, EBCI, and I'll answer anything you've got to the best of my ability.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'd like the names of the, I think we asked for 5 additional licensed inspectors, and I'd like to show that on record that we have.
Let's see. Gina Johnson, Paul Nitz, Ethan Dean, Tony Sapp, Gary Ponce, they're all in the field.
Okay.
And we have James Melvin, who's in the office.
Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure, I wanted to bring it up tonight in open forums, there was some discrepancy as to the question of if a homeowner's house had water go through it and the water was higher than the outlets. I want to make absolutely sure that the city inspectors are in line with what I've been told the county inspectors are. And the answer, I understand, should be to the homeowner. If the homeowner asked how much wiring must be replaced, it would be the outlets are replaced. It's recommended that more wiring be replaced, maybe as far back to the breaker box, but that is not a direction that must be followed. Would you be in agreement to that statement?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm in agreement with that. That's a very tough call because I've been an electrician for about over 40 years, and I've been in this situation many times. If salt water gets on electrical wiring, it will eventually go. But that being said, the code does not specifically address this. Manufacturers recommend that if it's been submerged in either salt water or rising flood waters, that it should be replaced. We're going to try to throw most of that burden back on, I say most of that burden. If the switch gear, any devices, any panels are wet, they absolutely got to go. There's only it can be cleaned at times, but it's a very expensive process to do it right. And you basically got to get an engineer certified, and it's cheaper to buy new panels. But as far as the wiring, if it's minor wiring, it's just maybe coming down to the outlets, if they can replace as much as possible and put that burden back on the licensed electrician to look at it, clean it properly, and if they feel comfortable with it, we will accept it.
Okay, and back to my original point, the reason we held this special meeting the other day was to make absolutely sure that our city building department and our county building department were giving out the same information.
And that's kind of tough too, because again, the codes don't address this. Sometimes it has to be from your background knowledge. A lot of inspectors, even though they've been licensed, may have never been through this type of situation before. So they may not have dealt with salt water in electrical equipment. They may think, like some of the restoration people out there will just tell you they clean it up good, it'll be fine. But that's not the case. So we're going to do our best to encourage them to replace anything that's had rising water or salt water. But if it's going to be a difficult process, it's going to be extremely expensive, and the electrician can complete it and kind of take responsibility for what they've done, I think we can accept that. And I believe that's what the county feels also. They don't want anything that's going to become a problem to be left in the house. So we're going to do our due diligence to make sure we get the best job we can without putting an undue burden.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, and going forward, that the information from the city, especially from our building department, is that if a licensed electrician is on the scene, that they will make the ultimate call.
And the other part of that is that a lot of it depends on the type of wiring. Some of the
Right.
older braided wiring, that stuff's gonna go because the paper gets saturated with salt, it's gonna corrode no matter what you do, so it's probably gotta go. So it's hard to just make a blanket statement, yeah, we're gonna let it stay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I think the only thing is, I want to make sure everybody's been treated fair. I know Jim and I spoke today about the 50% and the values and such, and you said you had a meeting with Mr. Bird, the property appraiser. If you want to go into that a little bit for the public so that they have knowledge of it.
Yes. Basically what we said is we work with the building department. We're trying to do everything we can to help folks be able to put their houses back together. If it does become an issue that we're trying to,
I'm back with you.
Thanks, Mayor.
if we run into an issue of value, Mr. Burge did say that he would sit down with staff and try to work with us to run into the issue.
Only other, I just ask for you guys to work with people during this time. And I know you, Scooter, and I know.
We do our best to do what's acceptable and still work with the people. I mean, we don't want to cause a burden on anybody, because we know that just causes all of us to get phone calls and complaints.
Absolutely.
But we still got to have compliance. That's the issue.
Any other questions from the board? All right, if you can stick around till the end when we have comments from the public, I bet we'll need your help again.
But I can get to them.
You will when we all leave.
All right, St. Joe redevelopment update. I guess I can give that one. We met this afternoon at 4:30, and we're taking another look at our budget, seeing if we can reprioritize. You know, we had money in certain pots to do some decorative items down on Reed Avenue, and I think as a board we're going to relook at that and see if that might not be better used in another facade grant type program to help the businesses that have been damaged. But we've tabled that to think on it, and we should be moving in a new budget direction next month. And that's all I've got for PSGRA. Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That said, the golf cart ordinance, the draft is on the agenda. I'm not suggesting that the draft should be accepted, we should move forward, but I think it was thought that if we could get back to some normal routine business, that would be helpful. This is what, working together with the golf cart committee, we've formulated and come up with. This particular draft that's in your packet has insurance. To be clear, the golf cart committee did not, although it was contentious, they chose not to include it. I have two drafts, one with, one without, pending approval from the commission. And Mr. Anderson, did you provide the board with this letter from Ms. Lewis?
Yes, there'll be a copy of it.
There's a letter from Ms. Lewis expressing that before you. Ultimately, the committee has a role to play, but the ultimate role is from this board. So what I would ask is that this board take some time, review it, speak to the committee, possibly even have the committee come back at another meeting and give the board some of their insight from the weeks that we spent together prior to moving forward with the finalized version. version together. It shouldn't take long once I have clear direction from the board, just to edit or delete some statements and move forward. We'll be ready to present this ordinance for the public.
Sure, and I think it would help me too. I need to go back to the original ordinance and actually see what all the changes are. But I think we all need time to take a look at it.
There are multiple amendments for your review. but-
Is there a way you can do, like either a highlighted from the original to the new, where you can highlight the, or a strike through or something?
I can work on something, yes.
Any questions regarding the golf cart ordinance?
Good.
Okay.
One other thing, Mr. Ashbrook, is it's not on the agenda, but I have spoken to Neil Dunn's staff about the blue tarp, the blue roof, I believe it's called. And I've asked that Congressman Dunn assist us because the numbers were in the high 300s and only 7 at the last. And I understand there's some folks in the audience that may will speak to that, but I have reached out to Congressman Dunn, although to try and assist us with pushing that to get more relief for our citizens here.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to old business, Hurricane Michael updates. Jim, I assume that was to let all the agencies speak at this time?
We can. Want me to give a brief update of what we're working on, staff? Currently, we are out to bid for the Centennial Building, Washington Gym, and the Stackhouse roof. Those are 3 big ones there. We have it out, so those will be closing towards the end of November. We are also working with their insurance company. We should have those numbers hopefully by the end of this week. That way we can push those out and see what we're looking at as far as coverage from our insurance companies. We do have a few items additional that we need to go out and get bids for as well. I believe this will help us out too when we start negotiating with our insurance company. Those will be for the police department. We have mediated the problem as far as with Serpro and treating the facility, but now we need to go out and get some bids for wiring, for the sheetrock to go back in, and for flooring. So wish the board we could go out to bid, that way we could have these numbers, start compiling it, and then the day when we get our insurance numbers, we can all sit down and decide what we're going to fix and what we're going to be able to afford to fix.
So move staff recommendation, go out to bid.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Lowry, second from Commissioner Langston. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. All right.
The last thing I will report is Attorney Albritton and myself did sit in on a meeting today, meet and greet with our public assistance consultants. So went very good this morning. We had a lot of questions. Mike, of course, sat in with the two, so we did start that process this morning as well.
Okay.
And just for the record, we're not under contract yet. My plan is the county's negotiating with them on some specific terms, which I believe would be favorable. But once they have their contract negotiated, I think we can work with, use that as our framework and bring that back to the board before entering into the contract. But I think there's some things the county are working on with Horn directly that will be beneficial for the city too.
Very good. All right, at this time, let's go ahead and bring up some of the representatives for updates from the different departments. I see right now we've got the Army Corps of Engineers. Why don't you give us an update on some numbers?
Jim Meilenberg, Local Government Liaison for Gulf County. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Gusson Holman. He's the commander for the Corps of Engineers for this mission.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Rich Gusson, and I'm the Recovery Field Office Commander for the USACE response here in support of FEMA. I know there were some concerns with regard to the Blue Roof program that we execute on behalf of FEMA. I do know that there have been low numbers within Gulf County, and in particular Port St. Joe. In fact, that's just part of the process of the way we move through the backlog. In fact, Port St. Joe represents, and actually Gulf County represents about 10% of the total number of right of entry applications that we've received at this point throughout the affected region. And as a result, we likely see a lower output. I can tell you that as of today, there are 135 roofs that have been installed throughout Gulf County, 135. And that number we expect to continue to rise. I know that that number went up about 57 in the past 24 hours. That's not because we've changed anything in the process. Part of that's the queuing that we use. As you submit your right of entry application through one of the various means, we issue it back to the contractor in relative order. Now, the contractor does have a period with which to execute that installation, and that allows them to collect and group for efficiency's purposes. And then if they fail to execute a temporary roof within a given specified time, 10 days, we actually can start collecting damages from the contractor for that. And so that's kind of the summary, sir. Do you have any questions of me and where we stand in this process?
Thanks for listening.
Sir, we appreciate it. I do want to emphasize that right now, the plan is to stop collecting right of entry applications on the 11th of November, unless we're directed by FEMA to extend it. And there are two locations. One is at the EOC here in Port St. Joe, and the other one is up in Rewahichka at the information center up there. I hope I got that one right. So, thank you again for your time.
I've got a question
Yes,
for
sir.
you. You said that Gulf County represents roughly 10% of the total number of right of entry forms. The other 90%, what area is that encompassing? And is the 10% in relation to the number of roofs you've already put on or are currently putting on?
Sir, already we've we've executed about 40%. We're up of the 7,000 and change ROE, 3,300 have been installed to date. So we're right about the 40% mark right now. Again, I haven't run my statistics yet today. Again, Bay County continues to lead the way with ROE with roughly 5,600 ROE collected to date, and in fact was probably the hardest hit based off of our assessment from both overflight as well as on the ground reconnaissance. Bay County, when we look at the order, Gulf County is number 2, and again represents about 10% of the total ROE collected, and it's been consistent across the board. Most of the rest of the counties have been minor, with Washington, Jackson, and Calhoun County fairly similar numbers to Gulf County at this point.
Well, let me be more specific. Maybe I didn't do a good job the way I asked. The 10% of the forms that were filled out are the people saying, we want you to do our roof. So out of the total number of roofs that you have done, including Bay County, is the 10% of that total number in relation and in line with how many roofs in Gulf County have now been done?
Sir, and actually the answer is embedded in that question, or in that answer, in the previous answer. So no, but part of that is the queuing model and the magnitude of what went on in Bay County at the time when we first started collecting ROEs. The density of ROEs collected actually were largely in Bay County early on. And that's,
Is that because you did not come over here and get started as soon as you started in Bay County? I'm trying to figure out where the breakdown was.
actually, sir, we were here at the same time that we started in Bay County. Part of it is where we were located in Bay County, centralized locations where people trafficked quite a bit. So we've put up in the Panama Beach Square, as well as the Walmart right there off the main drag, also Panama Beach Highway. So we had 3 locations that we set up in. And subsequently, we set up 2 locations here in Port St. Joe in line with what FEMA had requested from us. So our sites were initially established in coordination with FEMA based off where they were anticipated from the counties of being required, and that's why Port St. Joe was selected as the site for Gulf County initially. Subsequently, we received a request to move up further north in the county to allow people who live in the northern part of the county to access the ROE sites more easily.
Yeah, I think what happened, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but what it sounds like to me what happened was you were very effective in Bay County signing up people and getting the right of entry forms accomplished. And then when those people started asking for the work to be done, you pulled the majority of the roofers to those sites. Because we have a lot of people that travel from Bay County to do construction work. in Gulf County. We have a very few, we're limited in the amount of roofers we have. So and kudos for signing up the people in Bay County, but it pulled so many of our working staff to Bay County. We're struggling now getting roofers, qualified roofers, to do our job. And that's why, again, I say we should be at the 10% of the total number of roofs accomplished. The fact that we're not tells me there's a breakdown in the system.
And I can't speak to that particular one. I can tell you that basically the way our system is designed, that it's first to sign up, obviously goes in the queue first. And, we were present in all the counties, at our 8 ROE sites at the same time, with the exception of we did lag 6 hours, so we gave 6 hours more time to the other ones. Part of that was a time-distance relationship in getting our vehicle positioned down at down near the Baptist Church here in Port St. Joe. With that said, we tried to do it equally and fairly, and we worked with the county as well as with FEMA in order to figure out where those sites are going to go.
Well, I'm glad to hear that we're up 57. So if we'll continue to move in that direction, I think we can make up the loss that we obviously are faced with. So,
Sir, I hope to see the same. And again, Jim actually serves as my representative here in Gulf County, so please feel free to ask him any information. He can reach out and contact me at any time. I would like to add one other note, and I know we've seen this here in Gulf County, but one of our concerns is a lot of people are trying to use the USACE name in order to get money from the citizens of Port St. Joe as well as Gulf County. This is not our flyer. This is put on somebody's door here within Gulf County. Basically, it says, hey, come get a USACE blue roof. Well, if anybody asks anyone for money for a USACE installed blue roof, that's the wrong answer. Even if it is possibly a subcontractor or contractor for USACE, they have no authority to accept money to install a blue roof. This is a fully funded FEMA program courtesy of the U.S. government, and we are just the action agent for it, and we want to fight this if at all possible. So please contact your local sheriff or police chief and make sure that this is aware, and also let us know, because we want to know about this so we can communicate to the people.
well, Florida Insurance Fraud was here yesterday investigating some calls on that very thing.
And we've been working with your local law enforcement. I have a gentleman on my staff who takes care of these investigations, and we'll provide lists of contractors. If they want more information, we're here to help, because the last thing we want is people who, after they've gone through disaster, to have fraud perpetrated against them, especially utilizing a government program and a government agency to perpetrate that fraud. So thank you, sir. Any other questions?
We just pass that flyer around the room so everybody sees.
Yes, I will.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Sir, if you didn't sign your name, would you please sign it so I can get it correct in my minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. We have anyone from FEMA here today? Representative from FEMA.
I have, but I don't have an update,
Okay.
except for I'm going to let our long-term recovery people tell you about a meeting. Jonas?
Come on up.
Jim, do we have one of these in City Hall? Do we put one of these up in City Hall? To let people know,
I get a copy of that for you. I'll shoot it out PDF, I'll get it over to Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Just put some more of these out.
You can sign and state your name.
Good evening, Jonas Ballreich. I work out of the Gulf County USC for Florida Emergency Management. The big update for tonight is I would like to extend an invitation to all the city officials and county officials, community leaders, faith-based church leaders, leaders of nonprofits to join us for our first long-term recovery group meeting, which will be held on Thursday, November the 8th at 5:30 p.m. at the First United Methodist Church on 1001 Constitution Boulevard. And the objective of the meeting really is to organize the county in a manner that allows for us to A, share unmet needs data, so we need to understand where are the unmet needs a couple of weeks and even month down the road, then share resources, but then most importantly set up an organizational structure that allows us to get funding from the state and also on the national level, donations and so forth, coming down to allocate to the survivors to really rebuild in a more effective and faster way. So it's a process that has been utilized or has been implemented throughout the years in other affected areas very successfully. On Thursday, this will be the kickoff, so bear with us. It's not easy at the beginning to get it off. We did a lot of outreach to local churches, local CBOs, community-based organizations, and the large nonprofits operating in the county. So the invitation again to all of you to please join. It will be the first of such meetings, and it will be a long-term process, right? Recovery will take months, unfortunately, and that's what the organizational structure should be that carries us in the county through this process of getting more resources in and, again, sharing unmet needs information. So that's the big update. I have flyers here. I will leave them somewhere if I can.
If you can leave one with our clerk.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will do that. And other than that, we still have probably like half a dozen of nonprofits operating in the county doing tarping, right? Muck out, gut out, chainsawing. AmeriCorps does an amazing job every day. They're out there with like 5 teams. We're getting new volunteers coming in, so we're working hard. We're getting another 15 volunteers in over the weekend. We have new groups are coming, so some of them stay in the base camps, others stay in churches. And yeah, the donations piece you already discussed. It's slowly winding down, but yeah, that's where we stand. Are there any questions about any of this?
Good. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
All right, how about Red Cross? You're up. Red Cross update?
I did get a call from our Red Cross rep that she was leaving and we will have a new rep. They thought she would be here tonight, but 100% positive. So.
Okay. How about the Salvation Army? Anyone here from Salvation Army today? All right. Any organizations that I've missed? Moving right along. New business. Jim, what you got?
Yes, sir. Item we have tonight is in reference to Capital City Bank. If you recall, a couple of weeks back, the board did give a direction for temporary structures. With the assistance of Attorney Albrecht, we have a special variance affidavit, so that is in place for structures on private property. This one's just a little bit different because we have an option 1 and an option 2. One being on private property and one utilizing Frank Pate Park. This information, if you look in your package today, there is from Mr. Ben Deschner, and I believe we have some representatives here too from Capital City Bank that may want to give you a little additional information.
Is Ben or Aaron here? Come on up, Aaron.
Good evening. How are y'all? I will gladly answer any questions that I can. I'm certainly not the expert on this. I think the hope and the expectation is with the option 1, which would kind of sit us right on the edge of Frank Pate Park, is kind of our hopeful desire, so that we've still got our full parking lot to be able to use for our clients. The option 2 is kind of our backup if for some reason the city wasn't able to allow us to use Frank Pate Park. I did speak with Ben a little bit today. Just told him I'd be here and present for any questions that may come up. I know that kind of where the building we hope to sit at, there are 3 posts that have some kind of electrical box. I believe he said they haven't been used in many years. That was something that we will take full responsibility in taking care of, removing and replacing once we're done. Any costs that are incurred because of that, we will gladly, obviously that'll be on our end. They've got everything in motion as far as with Duke Energy for the electric, temporary pole to go up, and then our water and sewer is a self-contained on this unit, so it's not anything that the city's going to have to, do for us or help us with. It'll be something that'll be maintenance once or twice a week, and so that's kind of a self-contained part there. So I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. Ben's certainly the expert, but I definitely want to be here and be present for anything you may need.
I know I spoke to you, Aaron, a few days ago, and I spoke to Jim this afternoon a little bit about it. I'm completely fine with option 1, option 2, where it would not be on the city property. My issue was the point that we're allowing private business to operate on city property, and it's kind of a little bit of gray area. I'd probably also say that the attorney would probably vouch for that as well. But
Yeah, I mean, it's much simpler if we use option 2. Option 1, the way I would envision trying to structure would be to do a licensing agreement temporarily due to emergency effects. There is, some argument for commerce that the banking industry aids in. Would have to be a term. I assume that y'all would agree to a term, and you got liability issues so that you would indemnify if that's the pleasure of the board. If they want option 1, option 2 is much simpler, cleaner for the city. So,
And I believe, just the case of the term, I think it was a 6-month. I think the benefit insurance, 6 month was kind of the
On either
understanding.
option 1 or 2 is both 6 months?
I'm assuming, from what I understand, and I don't get to be included in a lot of this stuff from upper management, but, or the building department within Capital City, but I believe that the lease with this mobile unit is a 6-month lease. I think we're going to do everything we can to do a little more accessible in our building downstairs. Obviously, the downstairs was kind of a total loss for the time being, but, the building's a tank and should be able to be rebuilt and come back, but I believe the 6 month, I don't believe we wanted to go further than that because I think it was a minimum 6 months, and so if we went past that, then we'd be kind of locked in longer than we needed to be, so I think 6 months is kind of our expectation either way, so.
Well, I'll just tell the board, staff out my feelings initially.
Could you all speak loud? We can't hear you. And
We
I
will.
know the attorney either. Thank you.
No. I think one of these other guys turned my mic off. My thoughts are, we're in a position where if there's something we can do for our homeowners, our citizens, and our businesses, we need to think outside the box. Now, if the city attorney tells me that that's something we can't do, I would feel like we haven't really done what we've been saying we're going to try to do, and that's rebuild our city and assist our businesses. So I'm in support of option 1, because I think that's the road we need to be traveling down at this point. Now, I'm going to lay heavy on the city attorney and the staff to convince me why we can't do that. And I understand that we're opening up Pandora's box possibly, because we may have other businesses that need city property. Well, I'm gonna, again, say if we have the property and it fits the, if it serves the purpose to the business owner, then we should be helping that. We're entering into areas that we've never been before. We just approved, last week, to allow mobile homes to be put in the city limits. So I'm fine with option 1.
Yeah, and I think I probably more echo closely what Commissioner Hoffman said. It's a big parking lot. I mean, the argument that it's going to take up all the parking spots, just really doesn't hit with me. I think that there is a lot of parking, but again, we're here to do whatever we can do to assist the businesses. If y'all feel that that's what you need, and that option 1 would be better for you, I would be in support of that.
Yeah, I think I'll be in support of option 1. I know the attorney said there may be some liability, but hey, the situation that we're in right now, we're just trying to rebuild and grow. I think I can take that chance as long as it's trying to help move forward into the rebuilding effort.
Mr. Attorney, what do you recommend here? Would you like a motion that maybe we kind of pick an option and then leave it up to y'all to discuss the terms of the contract?
Yes, and if I may just hold the mic. Commissioner Hoffman, I'm not suggesting that you cannot do either option. Option 2 is very much cleaner because we already approved a special variance for 6 months for mobile homes, and the way that Jim and I have structured that for temporary structures. What we don't want to get into is picking and choosing which businesses can use city property. That's where we open ourselves up to private business if we're assisting them in their private gains that's where we can get in some murky water. I'm not saying you can't at all. If the board feels that option one is the best, then what I would ask is for a motion to approve option one and then allow staff and Capital City Bank to work together to form a short-term agreement. And I'd already briefly explained how I would envision doing it with a licensing agreement, not a lease. It's only a small portion of the property as I understand it. And that the Capital City Bank will return the property in the same or similar condition except normal wear and tear. There would be an indemnity provision, and I would like to see at least a 30-day mutual termination on either side if there's an issue later on that both parties can get out within a reasonable amount of time for the bank to be able to leave that position.
Mr. Attorney, does it make a difference that it's contiguous property? I mean, I can understand if an outside contractor came into town and said, I want to put my business up here, and we turn them away, that looks bad, but this is contiguous to the current business. Does that have any weight in court?
And previously, before I had mentioned that the emergency circumstances, the value of the commerce that Capital City Bank can bring to the city, I think that's what I would certainly rely on, assuming the pleasure of the board is to use option one in making this a special exception. We're in an emergency situation, even though we may not be in a declared state of emergency locally, we still are. There are businesses and individuals hurting. The bank is offering to provide a temporary patch while they fix long-term solutions for their bank, and that's where I would rely on in this agreement going forward. Do I think that we can still tell a business, no, you can't sit in the middle of city property? I certainly do. But if a competitor comes up, I think we have a hard time if we tell them no, they can't use some portion of our property. We're setting a standard. My job is to be as risk adverse, or at least advise you of the risk. Your job is to make a decision on what it benefits the city the most. And I'm not trying to be improper by telling you your job, you know that, but I appreciate Commissioner Hoffman's fix-it attitude. I'm with you on that 100%. All I'm saying is the cleaner route is option two. If you want option one, I'll do my best to make it happen and defend the city the best I can if there becomes an issue later.
Aaron, and I know you probably don't know this 110%, but do you know 6 months, do you foresee yourself in that building in your?
Yeah, that I don't know for certain. I know it's going to be a long road. I think that the best understanding I have is that it may be a longer period of time before the downstairs is completely finished. But I know that whoever it is we're using in order to use the mobile unit, it was going to be a minimum 6 months. If we went past that 6 months and it takes 3 more months to get into the building, then we're stuck for 3 months and all the costs that go along with that. So I think the bank's trying to avoid that. And we also are trying to, hopefully not put the city out for any more than that period of time because, I personally don't want to have to be in anybody's way any longer than we have to be, I know they're still kind of trying to figure options, as far as the rebuilding and how long it's going to take. But I'm hopeful that, we've been able to operate upstairs in kind of a, primitive fashion so far. And I think we will have options if it comes to it to be out of there and gone after 6 months. So I think in some form or fashion, at least, to some degree, we can be back in that period of time. So, but again, I'm not an expert and I don't know for certain, but that's kind of my estimation. But I think the understanding that Ben and Jim had kind of discussed was that 6 months is all we're really kind of asking for as far as from Capital City to the city of Port St. Joe. So
I guess at this time,
I'm comfortable making a motion that we accept option one based on the recommendation of staff and the attorney.
we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second, I'm fine with it too.
Any discussion?
Would the board be agreeable to allowing the parties to negotiate the specific terms
Yes.
of liability? We don't know that Capital City Bank will accept and indemnify us. That's something I think would be very important. Termination clauses, things like that.
Put that in your motion?
Yeah, well, it pretty much was based on the recommendation of the city attorney and staff. So you can enter into the details. That's why you make so much money. We have full confidence in you.
I appreciate it.
I'll second that again.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hoffman, second by Commissioner Lowry. Is there any further discussion? All right, any comments on the public on this one?
Officer. My only question, I'll sign in, Steve Womack, 302 19th Street. Is this, you charge rent for the Frank Bay Park on any given day when people use that. Is this a for-cost contract, or is this free?
It's a free contract.
But if I want to rent the park, it's $100 a day, right? Is that not correct?
And I believe we talked about a licensing agreement, correct?
We did not. I'm offering up the assumption that this would be zero cost to the
Yeah,
capital
Mr.
city
Womack, they-
based off the
You
limited space.
gotta kind of understand we're at different times.
I
And we're
understand.
trying
Yes,
to
sir.
help.
I understand quite a bit, actually. I'm just saying that it's a for-profit business. The city's incurring a lot of extra costs right now. As a business person, people, I would say, maybe you for cost. Nothing wrong with that.
You did say we're gonna open up Pandora's box.
I agree with it.
Anyone else from the public? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. Moving on to updates.
I'll be glad to help with any part of this, but I know Ben and you have kind of been speaking on that, so if y'all need me to convey anything or pass anything on, I'll be glad to. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Moving on to Public Works update.
Yes, sir, thank you, Mayor. Actually, I just have one item for the board, and it's really a request from the board. As we've moved through this storm, you know, we have systematically gotten our facilities and utilities in order, at least functional. Having said that, we are in a position now, Public Works, to kind of move down to actual construction. The Corps at City Hall has been receiving a lot of requests for new installs in particular. You know, we lost a lot of customers in our area on our services, both water and sewer. One of the hardest hit areas out there right now is the Cape. The Cape has suffered, you know, catastrophic septic tank failures and so forth. So this request is a little bit untypical of what we've done in the past, as we would approach the board and say, we have a specific cost for, you know, this subdivision of this street. What I would like to get permission from tonight from the board is for us to move forward with our construction on lines to try to help these folks on the Cape reestablish at least sewer. You know, the septics are gone, they can't, you know, do anything with that, so they need some way to dispose of their waste, and that's what I'm asking the board to do. We're looking at areas that have 3 to 5 customers, small lines, 2-inch lines, and if we can get permission from the board to do that, we'd love to work with our engineer, make this happen, and I can report back to you each meeting and let you know where we're at and, you know, what each expense was. Most of these should be relatively small. You know, 2-inch lines, you know, do not cost a lot of money to install. So if we can get that permission, we would love to go ahead and start on that as early as the 1st of next week.
And do we still have money in the Cape Sewer Fund?
We do. It's about $280,000, I think, in that fund.
So with the board's permission, we would love to do that.
I have no problem with that, guys. I think we need customers right now.
Absolutely.
Right. And like you mentioned earlier, the last thing your department needs is 4 or 5 people picking and choosing where you work. So that's what we rely on you to do. You have our support.
Thank you, sir.
Do you need a motion?
I would put that in form of motion if you would, sir. Yes, sir.
I will entertain that motion. So moved. We'll give that one to Eric. Commissioner Langston? Second. Second by Commissioner Hoffman. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. All right, wastewater, you're up.
We still haven't been able to discharge yet. There's a lot of debris in the pond, so we've got room still, and we'll just keep fighting until, you know, we can clean it up enough to discharge. We've got a foot 4 inches as of today. So that gives us, outside of a rain, you know, big rain event, that gives us, you know, time to continue to work on it. But that's where all our hours are going right now, is to get our disfiltrations pushed out the effluent. So All the influence stuff works like it's supposed to. We're on regular power. You know, we have no bypass right now, if that's something we're going to have to look into. We lost our generator, it's a big generator. So we're going to have to put something on the influence side of the headworks. And so we'll start brainstorming, you know, a better idea than what we have. We should be able to, I would expect us to be able to push water out, start at the end of the week, start getting our pond back lower, and get us a little more breathing room. But that's where we are so far.
All right, any questions for Kevin?
When you say we lost our generator, is it now repaired or replaced in the event we lose power again?
It is neither. We have no generator backup right now. Our backup pump is got hurt during the hurricane, actually after the hurricane. So it takes a lot of manual work just to get it to pump. So we're still kind of limping along at the headworks, which is where all the water goes into one system, goes into the headworks.
Do we need to purchase a new generator?
I'm not sure a generator is the right option. I think, knowing what we know now, after watching this storm hit us, I think a pump and a house would be, you know, better for us than a generator. I think it's a complete second rather than tagging into electrical power to support electrical pumps. Because if you have something happen with the electrical system, you're back out, you know, again, you still have nothing. So I think a separate system altogether, like a diesel pump would be better.
Well, I think we should be learning from the storm as we fix things. So what you just explained is a good example of learning. So if we've learned based on your knowledge that we may can go a different route in the event we have another failure in the future, what I want to see us doing is making that a reality. If you want to go with a diesel pump, then let's either purchase one or find one, rent one, but let's have one. Now is the time, I believe, to be making these purchases because we can argue that we can get reimbursed for the purchase. So let's not wait 3 to 6 months and then, you know, try and work it out, work with our budget man, decide and see if we can go ahead and purchase that.
Mike, I'd also check and see if that generator was on our inland marine schedule.
We were able to review that schedule and found an updated schedule that did list that it just had the wrong address on it. So we weren't able to identify it when we did the initial review, but subsequently they've agreed that that generator is listed and we will be able to recover those funds.
And actually, I would echo those same comments. Kevin's making 100% the right decision. You know, we've experienced the same failure around with our sewer system. You know, when you lose your electrical panels, and we lost 24 of them, your generators don't do you a lick of good. He's absolutely correct with going to pump.
Yeah, well, I was sitting here nodding my head like I knew what you were talking about. In all reality, you lost me. But I feel a lot better knowing that you have figured out a better way to supply the sewer. So I just want to say, you know, thank you for doing that, and now let's make it a reality and make the purchase.
The people like ECUA came in, and these guys have already learned that lesson, and they're willing to share whatever. So, you know, when they walk with me, you know, they'll tell me everything they think that they learned when they got here. So, you know, for me, I'm thinking we might as well use those. I mean, they've made the offer to help us in any way they can. So.
And I think I'd like to see those meetings happen with all department heads and Jim and talk about what we could do differently next time and maybe start working towards that. So, any more questions for Kevin? All right, moving on to Finance Director.
I did receive a verbal confirmation from our insurance provider Preferred that they've reviewed and come up with preliminary estimates on 46 of our 49 damaged sites. And they anticipate having us a check in those preliminary estimates by the end of week. So we're encouraged to get those funds coming in to help us offset any negative cash flow we might have because of the storm. And certainly these are just preliminary estimates, and certainly are not etched in stone, and we'll have time to review and follow up with them, but we hope to have that funding in hand by end of week.
Well, now, if we accept the offer, are we committed, in essence, to agreeing to the amount of payment? In other words, if the adjuster says we'll give you $100,000 on this building and we take the $100,000, does that hurt us in arguing, well, it should have been more money than that?
Not necessarily. It depends on, I'll try to speak up, depends on how the insurance company offers it. If this is a full settlement, you sign a release, then yes, it does. Now, if this is an initial payment and they allow us to supplement, so you bring in a contractor, and I'll use a residential house because that makes more sense to me, is they look at the wall and they say, I see water damage. Now, you pull it out, you've got electrical damage, you've got added damage by the 2x4 studs rod. Then you bring them supplement by providing them information from the contractor. The contractor gives you something in writing. You supplement and say, well, now 100,000 may have been okay, but these are the additional problems I have. One of the issues we might get into is if we say we know 100,000 is not going to work on X building, we can still accept it, but if we do $200,000 worth of work, the insurance company and us are going to end up fighting because they've already set their bar pretty low. I don't think that accepting the initial payment, as long as there's no release or anything like that, is going to be a great detriment to the city initially, though.
Yeah, the way I understand it is it's no release, and most of these deals will go out for bid, and then the amounts come back higher, we'll go back to the insurance company.
Exactly. Mr. Alvin, that's our idea, thinking at staff level. That's when we've asked permission to go out and bid for these items. We're going to get our preliminary numbers from our insurance company, and then we're going to also have our numbers that come in from the bid to fix these high-ticket items. Then we can all sit down and look at these items to figure out exactly what we can and cannot fix, and what we want to do with the insurance company.
Jim, have we thought about the potential of a public adjuster helping us out, fighting for more?
At some point, the board could look at it if you wanted to. At this point, I think what you want to do is you stay your course with your regular insurance company, work with your agent of record on there. But yes, sir, that is an option this board could look at at some point.
Any more questions for Mike? Mike, you have anything?
That's it.
All right, city engineer.
I don't have any real updates for you on the things listed under me. Just from a priority standpoint, in the next several weeks, those things will start to come back on the priority list, and we'll get some clarity. I mean, Langston Drive sidewalk will be a later start date than whatever we're talking, a month ago. The same with your road paving on your road bond. I mean, that's going to be still out, I would say, another month probably until things kind of calm down some more. But we'll gain a little more clarity on those going forward.
Any questions for the engineer?
We understand.
All right, moving on to code enforcement. Everyone's still getting their emails. Chief, you're up.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I had on the agenda was the bid request to rebuild the police department. You guys approved that. So thank you very much. I don't have anything else unless the board has questions.
I think we're good. I'm getting a lot more reports, though, of people's houses and yards getting walked into in the middle of the night. So not a lot you can do with one officer or two officers.
There's more than 1 or 2 officers because maybe they just need to spread up because they're stopping everybody that move over on the north side. I had a couple of people walking down the street. They stopped.
City. County.
Not county. What county is that?
Someone from some other county.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll get in touch with the sheriff and a couple of county commissioners about that. I know it's getting almost harassing now. So I'll talk to the sheriff about that.
Any more questions for Chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Charlotte.
The Christmas on the coast, December the 8th at 6, moving forward with that, have some interest in it from other people. They actually had calls from people from out of town who just happened to be here in the last year and wanted to make sure we were still having it. They've already made the reservations and outlying areas to come back.
Commissioner Commissioner Ashbrook.
Yes, sir.
Could I have just a moment to address the board on one issue?
Yes.
And kind of goes back to Commissioner Hoffman, when you were talking about some of the infrastructure improvements, how long-term, how do we avoid these problems later? In the municipal buildings that are damaged, and this is a topic that I've taken a keen interest in, and FEMA is not, right now, we're kind of in a triage. How can we just slap a Band-Aid on it and get the basic functions of government going? Long-term, and I think working with the PA consultant like Horn will be beneficial, but there's going to be opportunity, there's going to be grant money for not only getting us back to where we were, making us whole, but for improving this, whether there's needs for City Hall, police departments, there are going to be those opportunities. I'm not saying cash is just going to be dumped on City of Port St. Joe, but there will be significant opportunities for us to take the resources from the federal government to improve our standing, whether it is in the utility department, whether it is City Hall, police department, all those buildings. So I think a good plan would be to gather up where we are with insurance, with the buildings, the utility departments, and evaluate which expenditures we want to make immediately because we need to, versus long-term trying to push for those improvements, because I think there will be an opportunity. You see in some counties and municipalities after post-storm, a great influx of new construction, new building improvements, and one of the things that City of Port St. Joe offers is a great place to not only live for its residents, for folks people to come visit. And I think long-term there'll be that opportunity. Is that, am I making myself speaking understandably, I guess? I'd hate for the city to make an expenditure, significant expenditure, and then later find out saying, well, we could have had a brand new this or that with federal dollars, is where I'm going. So while we do have to patch certain things and make it operational, I think working with the PA consultant long-term, and it may take 2 or 3 years, but I think there's going to be significant federal grant dollars well beyond just the initial FEMA type wave of funding that the City of Port St. Joe will have an opportunity to reach and grab, working with Horn, working with the county. I think the opportunities will be there, and I just don't want us to make a significant expenditure and later find out that we missed out on having another opportunity.
And those are some of the things that Holland and Knight are going to be fighting for at the federal level for us as well.
Yes, and I've already worked with Holland and Knight on some other issues that Jim and I have discussed, but and they will work with us long-term on that. But so Horn's big thing, and I think our meeting today with them went well, is A, you got to get your ask right, is what they kept saying, which I understand. We got to know what we want. But the second part is they'll help us get in front of the right agency because it's the alphabet soup of agencies at this point. But there will be, CDBG block grants and all these other things that aren't apparent at the surface right now because of where we're at. But long-term, there's going to be some opportunity for the City of Port St. Joe not only to be made whole, get back to zero, but to advance. And I want the board to be cognizant of that going forward, any of the major expenditures we may have. Obviously, the board, all that's within the board's discretion, but something that I've taken a keen interest in. I think there are examples of other cities being able to take advantage of that, not only back, but grow.
All right, thank you. Moving on to citizens to be heard. Any citizens? Come on up, sir. Just need you to sign in, please.
My name is Scott Hamilton, live at 1302 Marvin. I got to take issue with the Blue Roof program. I was the first one there when they set up their tents, and I haven't seen anybody. The sticker's been in my window for weeks now. And when I asked about the timeline, they opened up a week after the storm. And they told me an inspector would be out for another 2 weeks. And 2 weeks after that, 2 weeks after that, what was that? They'd come out and do the work. That's 5 weeks. This is Florida. If it's not raining, it's threatening to rain. So, I mean, you got damage, it's got to be fixed. So, I'm just wondering about what's going on with their Blue Roof program.
We had the briefing earlier, sir, and it sounds like they're knocking out about 50 roofs a day now.
Okay, well, I was the first. Oh, the first one in line.
And they did talk about a queue process. Do you want to respond to that, Sarah?
Sir, and actually, I'd invite you to come and talk with me or Jim after this meeting. We can get your number, we can track down the information of where you stand. So for one reason or another, I can't speak, there might have been a glitch in the system. But if you ever have a problem where you're in this circumstance, contact our online phone number, that's 1-800-ROOF-BLUE. No, have you tried
No,
it?
sir. No, sir. I'm going to tell you right now.
Ma'am, could you come up to the front?
Yes.
please? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I've lost my voice. Millie Hamilton, 1302 Marvin Avenue. My husband was the first one in line. I tried 3 days after the storm, as soon as I had some service, because we had no Verizon, we had no power for internet. I could not get on, I could not call the number, no answer, and I couldn't get on the website to do anything. So my husband was first in line to go sign up to get this, because I didn't want him up on my roof fixing it. And we knew we had rain coming in 3 days.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we can't fix what's already not happened, but if you would meet with the colonel after the meeting, I'm sure that they'll get it mailed out for you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Come on up.
My name's David Griswold. I'm at 519 7th Street, Fort St. Joe. Talked with John this week. Left a message with Jim. We've had a drainage problem since 2014, probably longer than that. I bought the house in 2014. You guys weren't on the commission. You were, Mr. Ackroyd. I've been up here before talking about this. It took a year to get plans. Just get plans done. And I understand, design plans do take time. I'm in that business, I understand. But we're now 4 years later, pushing 5 now, and we have had no drainage been fixed on this. And it's affecting my property, and especially my neighbor's property. This is consistent, this is regular. What you see is not just a one-time thing. This has been ongoing. So we have got to get this fixed immediately.
And I have a question possibly for the engineer. It was a while back, but I remember seeing 7th Street drainage as one of our engineered plans. Do you know what the status on that, or what happened to that?
They're sitting on John's desk, I can tell you where they're at.
We did, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, we put the plans together. We have been seeking funding to buy the pipe to get it put in. And, I mean, we haven't got any grants or anything to do with it. We've been asking, been applying. That's kind of where it is.
Where exactly, so I'll have it in my mind, is 519. Which block is that?
In between Long and Gilbert.
Okay.
It's the alley in between 6th and 7th.
Yeah, because I've heard of people all the way up, like 2 or 3 houses behind Burger King flooding as well.
Correct.
So,
We got an issue, and it's been ongoing. We've been trying to fight it. Keith here, he's been actually trying to pump it across the street, trying to get it out, and try to alleviate it. Here, we're gonna have 4 more inches of rain by the end of the week. Really? Come on.
so we have a plan, we have a drawing, we just need to pay for it.
We do, and Clay helped me out with the initial, the cost on that, but it was well north of, it was expensive. That's what I recall.
Is this in your yard? Yeah, it's making it where we can't use our yards.
When we say expensive, what might it be expensive to my wife and me are 2 different things, so give me a dollar.
Commissioner, I completely understand.
Close, just somewhere in the ballpark.
I mean,
I
Clay
thought it was
jumped
like
in.
600.
The numbers I received, I think it was north of 80,000.
Way more than that.
Yeah.
Well, I just heard 80,000 and 600, so, I mean.
No, it was 80 to 100, if that's what I'm
It's in the
throwing
neighborhood
out.
of $100,000.
Yeah.
We looked at it a couple years ago, we looked at it at this level with the board, and we just didn't have the funding to do it. We've tried to seek grants to be able to do it, we've not been able to. And now, we did go by and take a look at it. The problem now is compounded by all the debris that are up and down the alleyway. So once the debris are cleared out, we can go back and make some temporary improvements, but a long-term fix, north of $100,000, we just didn't have the funding to do it.
Well, I assure you, if you'll give us the time to clean the debris off the roads and the back alleys and all that, we're gonna revisit this.
That debris is not causing an issue.
No, I know, I'm just saying we can't get to the problem to fix it until we move the trees and debris. You know, if you'll bear with us, give us a few weeks to get that stuff cleaned out, and we will make this a priority to figure out what is the problem. And if we have to pay for it, we'll find the money somehow, and we can't have people's backyards filling up with water.
I've pumped over 100,000 gallons out of that into the ditch next to mine.
Yeah, so let us get the debris from the storm picked up, cleaned up, and then we're gonna make a plan, and we're gonna figure out how to fix it, and then how to pay for it.
Well, the
One thing that
engineering plans are done.
Well, and it'll be that much quicker to do. It's one of the things that bothers me is when we meet, we come up with all these great ideas, and then we never do it. So.
That's what I'm saying, it's been sitting, I know, a year and a half.
You know, give us a few months at the most, then come back, and if we haven't done it, say, well, Commissioner Hoffman, all you did was talk. So, keep us in line, keep me reminded, and we'll see if we can get the problem fixed.
I would.
Okay? I have a feeling you will.
Yeah, I would.
That'd be something.
Ask John, he'll tell you.
We'll be back.
Very much so.
Be ready to submit
Appreciate it.
some type of grant if we find something, so.
Yeah, I mean, we've asked for years for funding for Long Avenue through governmental appropriations. Still haven't seen a penny of that yet.
Well, it
so-
sounds like his yard's been flooded for 4 years.
Yeah. Might find the money.
Along that same line, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. My name's Sarah Herring. I'm at 405 16th Street. I was. And I've had a drainage issue for many years as well. And I didn't come prepared to speak. I don't have any printed out photos or anything. I have some photos on my phone that I believe I brought up before when it was mostly different commissioners than what we have now. But we have a really bad drainage problem over there in my house because Long and McClellan yards drain down into a ditch that empties into my yard. And then the storm drains run uphill over to Long Avenue Baptist Church. So it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays.
And ma'am, I will make one comment too, so everybody here knows that has drainage issues. There's some NERDA money, correct me if I'm wrong, and part of that NERDA money that's coming back to us is including a comprehensive plan for the city's drainage. Am I right in saying that, Clay? Yeah. So that, once we have a map to work with, we fix one problem, it just drains it into someone else's yard. If we get a master plan together, we can start working towards the ultimate fix.
This particular photo is just a normal rainstorm. It's not from this storm or any tropical storm or anything else. This is just my yard when it rains. Where it comes down that ditch. And then it cannot go uphill over there to Long Avenue Baptist Church. Okay? And so I've had the guys have been great to come out in the middle of some of these storms and check to see if there was anything clogging it or anything. One thing we do know is that this pipe in front is broken and it has holes in it. So we've been trying to work to getting that. John's been trying to get that done, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
If we had a new pipe, would it solve part of the problem?
No.
Okay. So it's
It just
much more than
runs uphill. And it's stopped like where at my storm drain there, then it doesn't go into my neighbors, the Watsons. It goes across 16th Street to Long Avenue Baptist Church, where there's a storm drain there. But it's like this. And it's like this from that drain back there. It goes like that, trying to get to the front of the yard. It doesn't drain uphill, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to commissioners. Commissioner Langston, we'll start with you.
I just want to mention the debris, and I like to tell everyone to be careful because it's very dangerous. I mean, people trying to speed around. You got the trucks picking up the trash, and they're stopping in the middle of the road. Please be careful and take your time going wherever you're going. And also remember that kids are going to school, they're driving their vehicles, and we need to watch out for them. They also need to watch out. I tell my daughter to make sure she take her time going to school, but those of us that are adults, I don't think we should be in a rush trying to get somewhere when it's only a couple of minutes away. So let's just take our time and watch out for each other on the roads. Yeah, it's just been on my mind to talk about that. And also, I haven't seen Jim. I talked to Jim today about his Ashbridge that's picking up the trash. I haven't seen him over on the north side. And, I mean, in my community, I don't like saying the north side too much. I'm going to say my community where I live. I haven't seen them over there in probably about a week and a half. And the week that they came, the day that they came, they were in and out so fast, you could blink your eye. So but we can get in touch with them and let them know, just one truck over there be fine, just one truck to help get some of that debris. It looks bad. It looks bad, and I'm tired of going outside my house, riding down the road, and have to see this stuff on the side. I mean, I know it's everywhere, but we can use at least one truck to pick up some of the stuff over that side.
Yeah, I've been getting calls too that they'll pick up a large amount of stuff on one circle and won't hit the rest of the circle, and you don't see them again for 2 weeks. I don't know how they.
I think they subbing some of the jobs out too. I think it's not just
county waste.
It's not just them. It's those the people that they're subbing the jobs off to. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, we get in touch with the guy that's over Ashbridge or whatever and try to make them do a better job or something. But something has to change.
Jim, can we get Ashbridge to give us an update for the next foreseeable future, for the next 3-4 months? Have them have an update ready for us at the meeting on what they're doing, where they're headed, what their system is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And I like to say this too. When I asked Jim to call somebody and get them over there, he's doing that, and they come and do what they have to do. But constant work, I don't see it. I don't see it.
That it? Yes. All right. Commissioner Lowry?
The only thing I had, Jim, I noticed on the right-of-way at 98, that storage building, I haven't seen it, I didn't go by there today, but is it still there? There's a big storage building right next to Daly's, right there where our archway is.
Okay.
If you can get with the owner or DOT on trying to get that thing moved. I know they moved the sailboat out of the way.
I'm not sure if the storage building was moving on.
I think it might have been Rocky's.
Tan Smile.
We'll work on it tomorrow.
Commissioner Hoffman?
The only thing I have is an update on the Centennial Building. I'd like to announce to the board and staff and the public that I am looking at a tentative date of closing the food distribution on November the 15th. And I say tentative, I mean that's the day that I feel comfortable with. But at the same time, I want the public and all the staff and other commissioners and mayor to weigh in on this. I did speak to one of the county commissioners because I think it's important that the county is involved in the decision. So to just be thinking about a closure date of the 15th. I'm open to advice. If someone says, oh, that's a terrible idea, then we'll look at it as a group. So far, I will say that no one has told me that, no, that's too early of a closure date. Most people are saying that they feel like the need has been met. I've been there pretty much every day for the last several days, and I'm confident, or I feel confident that that date would be fair. I'd like to have a projected time frame so people know when we are planning to close. So just kick that around, and I guess at some point in the very near future, we need to make a call on that.
Commissioner Hoffman, are you talking about just the food distribution side or all supplies?
The 15th, in my mind, would be the day that the Centennial Building would be back to normal. We do have some appointments, I understand, where people have paid to rent the building. Now, that in no way has really impacted my decision. I've said all along that we would keep the Centennial Building up and running until we felt like the community's needs have been met. And based on what I'm seeing as far as the numbers of people and the people themselves that are coming in for supplies and for food, we're getting a lot of the same faces day after day after day, coming in and picking up the exact same items day after day after day. So that's what I'm weighing my decision on. I think that the people that we have set up to supply the supplies and mainly the food and cleaning items, we've met that demand, in my opinion.
And what is the plan? Where is it all going?
Well, that's according to who you ask. We've been told two things. One, the EOC, the state EOC has told us they will kindly come down with empty trucks and they will categorize everything, palletize everything, and take it off to somewhere in Tallahassee. Then the other answer to that question was the burden will fall on the city of Fort St. Joe to get rid of the items. So, according to who you ask, I don't know the answer. Now, my plans are, if we do agree that the 15th would be the last day, hopefully we'll have very few items in the building on the 15th. I personally would like to donate all of the items left to our local food banks, our churches, our civic groups that will take those items. That's what I would like to see. I would do that prior to letting the state EOC come and board it, palletize it all. I'd like to donate it to our communities.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Chester has something to add to this.
Well, I got some some things that Washington Jim already boxed up and ready to go. I'm just waiting to find somewhere to put it. I think other communities such as Mexico Beach, people that really need, we've done what we can do so far to help our people, I think, with supplies and distributing of goods. So I think let's try to get some things to those that are less fortunate than we are right now. I was thinking, I don't know how we can do it. We can get and talk and see how we can do it, but I'm thinking that that'll be the best thing that we can do to get somebody that really needs it. If it was left up to us.
Yeah, well, I think we have the decision as to do we call the state EOC if they indeed offer that service, or do we just go ahead and donate it? I mean, I'm fine, and I would prefer to donate it to our food banks and churches. And
maybe the Ministerial Association could take on that burden.
I just wanted to echo on what Eric was saying, because we closed down Friday. And when we closed down, we boxed everything up so it can be donated to wherever it's needed. Everything we have left has already been boxed up so it can be shipped out. And we want to also give it back to somewhere local in our community so it can continue to be used. Giving it away to Tallahassee will actually store it for the next hurricane. We'll never know when that might be. So I think it would be very proper if we can find shelter for it somewhere in our local community. Because like I said, ours is already set. And one of the reasons we shut down is early because the gym top is starting to leak again, and whoever will fix it didn't do a good job, so we had to kind of close down for safety issues. But we do have it boxed up and it's ready to go.
well, and just to update, I actually put in a order yesterday. And I don't believe for a minute that the state EOC will deliver that order on time. I gave them a heads up to our plans of closing up shop on the 15th. But we did place an order yesterday of about 13 different items, the ones that people have actually asked for specifically. So if that truck does arrive, we'll box it up and we'll add it to what we already have and donate it locally.
We have the same issue too. We have people that are constantly calling, and if they're bringing cleaning supplies and stuff like that, we're not turning them down. We're gonna box it up and keep it for our future use.
Thank you, Chester.
That's all I have.
Okay. All I've got, Jim, I had a question about the bidding process on all these, the roofs and any work that we're gonna have done. Where can those be found? Are they on our website or are they strictly in the paper?
They will be in the paper and on our website. They'll hit the paper this Thursday. I'll also be running in the Panama City paper, and we will have everything on the city website.
Okay. And as far as Ashbridge, trying to turn, I tried to make a right-hand turn on the Long Avenue from 20th Street, and you have to pull halfway out into the street to be able to see around those trees. Is there any way that we can get Ashbridge to prioritize those intersections, getting the corners cleared off as a priority? And that is all that I have. With that, I'll entertain a motion. All right, we're adjourned.